What if the US suddenly cut off billions in foreign aid overnight? Global programs halted, alliances shaken, and millions left in uncertainty. Welcome to today's episode, where we break down the biggest global disruptions shaping our world. Today, we're diving into the shocking dismantling of USAID, why it's happening, who's behind it, and what it means for America's role on the world stage. Buckle up, because this is a story you can't afford to ignore.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking into something pretty crazy. Really a hold your breath kind of situation, right? We're talking about all this upheaval at USA Day.
Oh, yeah. USA, the U.S. Agency for International Development. Big changes.
Yeah, and it's not like just some little policy tweak.
Yeah.
This is a total overhaul of how America handles its aid commitments to the rest of the world. I mean, the ripple effects could be felt everywhere, I think.
Yeah, every corner of the world, potentially.
What's really striking to me is how much this is dividing people. I mean, you've got people saying, it's about time, clean up this bloated system. Then others are calling it like a straight-up attack on American values and global stability.
Definitely a powder keg. We're going to try to unpack it all. We've got tons of sources, news reports, think tank stuff, social media threads, even some reports from inside USA Day.
Wow, so we're really getting down into it.
Yeah.
Now, for our listeners who maybe aren't, super familiar with USA Day, can you give us a quick rundown of what they actually do? What is it?
Sure. So basically, it's like America's helping hand to the world. They handle about $70 billion a year in economic and humanitarian aid.
Wow.
So, supporting everything from healthcare, education to disaster relief and, helping democracy grow in developing countries.
Okay, so the folks on the ground actually making a difference.
Yeah, they're the ones, boots on the ground, working to, help people's lives get better, make communities stronger.
So where did all this craziness start? It seems like it went from 0 to 60 in a flash.
Well, the first sign of trouble was this leaked memo from Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced a 90-day freeze, almost all foreign assistance programs.
Whoa, almost all. So what's not frozen?
Only exceptions were emergency food aid and then military funding for Israel and Egypt.
Huh, interesting. Yeah. That's a pretty interesting set of exceptions. It's like they're trying to send a message, right, about what they really care about.
Yeah, it raises questions about what's really behind all of this.
Definitely.
But, that memo, just the beginning. Soon after that, the USA Gebe website just gone.
Like poof?
Yeah, basically. Replaced with this very stark announcement that all direct hire staff, except a very small group, were being put on administrative leave.
And what about the contractors? Weren't they basically told to pack up and go home?
Oh, yeah. Projects worldwide were just thrown into chaos. Stop work notices everywhere, Uganda, Indonesia, you name it. And to top it all off, all of USAID's social media scrubbed clean. They were trying to just disappear.
It's a bold move for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was shocked and confused. But was there any clue early on about why this was happening? Were there already concerns about how USAID was doing?
Well, there's definitely been this ongoing debate, for years about how effective foreign aid actually is. Critics have said that USAID is this big, bloated bureaucracy, wasteful spending, not really accountable to anyone.
Right, and that's where you get these two sides.
Yeah.
Why are we sending billions overseas when we have our own problems here?
Exactly, and you see that a lot online. A lot of Americans feel like their taxes are being wasted on faraway countries while their communities are struggling.
So, fix our own backyard first? Is that what they're saying?
That's one side of it. And then there's the argument that the U.S. is carrying way too much of the weight when it comes to global aid compared to other rich countries.
We're the ones paying for everything.
Yeah, footing the bill while everyone else gets a free ride.
And then you've got the folks who think that money could be better spent on, tax cuts or beefing up the military, right?
Right.
But what about the other side? What are the reasons to keep USAID going and maintain America's role as a global aid leader?
Well, on that side, you got a lot of voices, diplomats, experts in development, humanitarian organizations, even everyday people, all pretty worried about what could happen if we get rid of USAID.
Okay, so break it down for us. What are the biggest concerns?
One of the biggest is that if the U.S. pulls back on aid, we risk losing our position as a world leader.
Yeah.
Creating this void that other countries, like China, might be happy to fill.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about the money itself. It's about, like, influence.
Yeah.
Soft power.
Exactly. The idea is that beyond the humanitarian impact, USAID's work has helped create goodwill towards the U.S., built relationships, and promoted stability worldwide. Critics of what's happening now are saying that throwing all of that away could really hurt America's image and undermine its long-term strategic interests.
And I imagine there are concerns about, global stability itself. Could cutting back on aid lead to more conflict, humanitarian crises, maybe even more extremism?
Oh, absolutely. Many experts say USAID is a vital player in preventing conflict and promoting development, especially in countries that are already unstable. They point out that when people's basic needs are met and they have real chances to build a better life, they're less likely to turn to extremism or violence.
So cutting off aid could actually make things worse in the long run, like backfire.
That's the fear. And it's not just hypothetical. We're already seeing real-life examples of projects being stopped, possibly leaving millions without health care, clean water, education, and that could have a domino effect leading to instability, displacement, maybe even more conflict in already vulnerable areas.
Man, that's a scary thought. It really shows just how complicated this issue is. It's not as simple as throw money at the problem and it's solved. There's so many things to consider.
Yeah, it's a tangled web for sure, and we need to understand all the pieces before we can make any judgments. But before we get too deep into all of that, I think it's important to look at what's actually happening on the ground, because this isn't just about abstract policies.
Right.
This is about real people's lives.
Right. I mean, we've been focusing on the big picture, but it's easy to lose sight of the human cost when you're talking about global shifts like this. So what are we seeing in terms of the immediate impact? Are there any specific stories or situations that show us what the consequences might be?
Well, one of the most shocking examples is BRAC, the world's biggest nonprofit organization.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
They had to completely stop programs that were reaching over 3.5 million people in Bangladesh and other places. I mean, these were programs to fight poverty, improve healthcare, education, just all gone.
3.5 million. Whoa. That's a lot of people. What kind of programs were they actually doing?
Everything. Microfinance, help women start businesses, agriculture, boosting crops, making sure people have enough to eat. They even had schools and health clinics in some really remote, really poor communities.
And now all of that is just gone.
Yeah.
What happens to those people who are depending on those programs?
It's a really tough question. A lot of people are worried that this sudden pullback of support could lead to even more poverty, more hunger, maybe even unrest.
It's like yanking a safety net away from an entire community. And BRAC is just one example, right? There must be tons of other projects going through the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing reports from all over about projects being put on hold, funding drying up, local partners left with nothing. There's a lot of panic and uncertainty right now.
It's got to be a hard situation, especially for people already struggling. This could push them over the edge.
Yeah, and don't forget, USAID employs thousands of Americans too, at their headquarters here and in offices all over the world.
Right. So we're talking job losses, economic problems, and even a loss of all that expertise and development work. It's like a ripple effect going way beyond just those cuts to the aid programs themselves.
Exactly. And that leads to the next question. What happens now? If they really dismantle USAID, what takes its place? Does the U.S. just retreat from its global role, or does someone else step in?
Yeah, who fills the vacuum? That's the big question.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people are worried that China might take advantage of this.
It's definitely a concern. China has been expanding its influence, especially in Africa and other developing areas, for years now, using loans and building projects to gain leverage.
Right, I've heard about that.
And with the U.S. seemingly stepping back, they might see this as their chance to become even more dominant.
And China's way of doing aid is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there are worries about transparency, accountability, whether their investments actually help local people.
Yeah, it's a big point of debate. Critics argue that China's aid comes with strings attached, forcing countries to side with their political and economic interests. And then there are the worries about the environment, labor standards. Some people say these projects exploit resources and workers.
So it's not just about who gives the aid, it's about how they give it and what it means in the long run. It's complicated.
Totally. And we can't forget that this isn't just some theoretical discussion. This is affecting millions of real people around the world. Their lives, how they make a living, their future, it's all hanging in the balance.
It's a heavy responsibility. Makes you wonder who's really calling the shots here and why.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking that, and that brings us to Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah. His name seems to be popping up everywhere, this whole USAID situation. What is his deal? And why are people so concerned about him?
Well, he's been really vocal online. On social media, he wants to see USAID shut down. He's called it a waste of taxpayer money and says private companies could do it better.
Wait, really? But is he actually involved in any decision-making? Or is he just tweeting his thoughts?
That's where it gets a bit blurry. Some reports say he's been advising the administration on foreign aid stuff, and some even say he's behind the scenes, orchestrating these changes.
Okay, hold on. Elon Musk, the guy with the rockets and the electric cars, is deeply interested in foreign aid. Why?
That's the million-dollar question. Some think it's purely ideological. He's a libertarian, doesn't like government involvement in anything. Others say he sees this as a business opportunity. Maybe he wants SpaceX or Tesla to take over some of the aid work.
And then there are those who think it might be personal, something to do with his childhood in South Africa during apartheid.
Right. Some folks point to things he said about the corruption and inefficiency he saw firsthand in government-run aid programs in Africa. They think that experience might have shaped his view that private companies are better at solving poverty and development problems.
Interesting theory. But we have to be careful, right? We're dealing with a lot of speculation here. No hard proof.
True. We shouldn't jump to conclusions about anyone's intentions. But what we do know is that Musk being involved just makes this whole situation even more complicated.
For sure. And it raises a big question about transparency and accountability. If someone with no official role in government can influence these decisions that impact millions of lives, shouldn't we at least know why?
Absolutely. It all points to this bigger question about the role of private individuals and corporations in shaping public policy. This debate has been going on for years, and it's probably going to get even more intense after all this.
It feels like we're in uncharted territory. The line between public and private interests is getting blurrier. And with so much at stake, we really need transparency and accountability more than ever.
Couldn't agree more. Which brings us back to pushback. Is there any chance these changes can be stopped or at least slowed down? Are there any ways to challenge this whole shift in U.S. foreign aid?
Well, a lot of people are speaking up, that's for sure. There's a lot of opposition coming from all sides, here in the U.S. and around the world.
Yeah, and legally speaking, several experts are saying that shutting down USAID without Congress approving it is like completely breaking the law. I mean, Congress is the one who created USAID way back in 1961 with the Foreign Assistance Act.
So even though the president can undo executive orders,
right,
they can't just ignore the law when it comes to something this big, like getting rid of a whole agency.
Right, exactly. It would have to be a new law passed by Congress to actually dissolve USAID. And that's where things get interesting because now we're seeing pushback from both sides, Democrats and Republicans.
So it's not just a partisan thing. Even some Republicans, who usually are more skeptical of foreign aid, are having second thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. There are real concerns coming from across the political spectrum about what this could mean. People are worried about national security, global instability, and whether America will still be seen as a reliable partner.
Yeah, makes sense that people are worried. The world is so interconnected, and what happens in one place affects everyone else.
Right, and we can't forget about the impact here at home. Many members of Congress have people in their districts who are directly affected by USAID projects, farmers who export their crops, universities doing research overseas, companies that supply goods and services for USAA. It's all connected.
So what are the chances that a legal challenge could work? Could this actually end up in court?
Hard to say for sure. The legal system is really complicated, and any lawsuit would depend on the specific arguments and the judges involved. But one thing's for sure, there's a fight coming. Some lawsuits have already been filed, and probably more are on the way.
Okay, so that's a little bit of hope for those who want to keep USAID. But what about beyond the legal stuff? Are there other ways people are pushing back?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of activism from former USAID employees, development experts, humanitarian groups, and regular people who care about this. Rallies, petitions, people calling their members of Congress.
That's pretty inspiring. People are standing up and speaking out against something they think is wrong. It shows that collective action can make a difference, that we can hold those in power accountable.
Yeah, exactly. And public opinion is powerful. If enough people speak up and make their voices heard, it can influence policymakers, maybe even make them change their minds.
So what can our listeners do if they want to get involved? What are some concrete steps they could take?
Well, first, stay informed. Read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, follow reliable news sources, get a good understanding of what's going on, then reach out to your elected officials, let them know what you think.
Right. It's easy to feel helpless in situations like this.
Right.
But talking to your representatives can actually have an impact. They need to know what their constituents care about.
Exactly. And don't underestimate social media either. Sharing information, raising awareness, having good discussions online, all of that can amplify these concerns and put pressure on those in power.
Wow. It feels like we're at a turning point here. What happens in the next few weeks and months could really change things. For global development, U.S. foreign policy, even for American democracy itself.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a critical moment and the stakes are high. We all need to stay informed, stay engaged, and be ready to act.
Well, I'm really glad we did this deep dive. It's helped me understand this whole situation a lot better, even though it's still a little scary. I can't help but feel worried about what's next.
I get it. It's a crazy time, and not knowing what's going to happen can be nerve-wracking. But even when things are tough, there's always hope. Hope that we can make good decisions, that justice will win out, and that we can build a better world for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this deep dive. Go check out the sources we talked about, share what you're thinking, and most importantly, stay involved. The future depends on all of us.